Your heart has just stopped. For most of human history, that was the end of the story. But today, scientists know it isn't that simple. Because in the seconds, minutes, even hours after you die, your body and brain don't just shut off like a light. What actually happens in those final moments is stranger, more mysterious, and far more profound than you've ever imagined. We often think of death as a single moment, a line you cross and never return from. But in medicine, there's a difference between clinical death and biological death. Clinical death happens when your heart stops beating and your breathing ceases. No blood flow, no oxygen. At that point, you're unconscious in about 15 seconds. But here's the twist: your cells aren't dead yet. When oxygen disappears, every cell in your body begins a desperate fight for survival. Enzymes shift, emergency processes kick in. The body essentially screams for one last breath. Inside your head, something extraordinary happens. In 2013, scientists at the University of Michigan studied the brains of dying rats. They expected to see fading brain activity, but instead, they saw a massive spike in brain waves far higher than normal waking levels. This surge lasted about 30 seconds after the heart stopped. The same type of activity in humans is linked to memory recall and heightened awareness. This could explain one of the most famous deathbed phenomena, your life flashing before your eyes. In 2022, a groundbreaking case shook neuroscience. A man undergoing brain surgery suffered a fatal heart attack, and because he was hooked to EEG monitors, researchers recorded his brain activity during and after death. What they saw mirrored the rat study: bursts of gamma brainwaves, the same ones that fire during deep meditation, dreaming, and vivid memory recall. It's as if, in your last seconds, the brain tries to make sense of itself, replaying your most important moments in a hyperreal sequence. Some scientists think this final surge could be an evolutionary glitch, the brain overloading as systems fail. Others believe it's the brain's way of easing you out of life, giving a calm, meaningful exit. As death approaches, your senses shut down, but not all at once. Sight. Oxygen loss narrows your vision, literally creating tunnel vision. The world fades to black from the outside inward. Touch. You may feel waves of heat or cold as blood flow becomes erratic. Smell and taste. These fade quickly. Hearing. Astonishingly, this might be the last sense to disappear. Studies of hospice patients using EEG monitoring show that even unresponsive people may still process sound, meaning they could hear loved ones speaking in their final minutes. This is why many doctors and nurses tell families, keep talking to them, they might still hear you. Once the heart stops, the body begins a race against time. Within seconds, oxygen levels plummet. The brain's neurons start misfiring. Within minutes, carbon dioxide builds up, making the blood more acidic. 30 minutes in, cells begin to rupture as membranes break down. 2 to 6 hours, rigor mortis sets in, muscles stiffen as chemical changes lock them in place. 12 hours, body temperature drops steadily. Skin may show livor mortis, purple patches where blood settles. At the microscopic level, autolysis begins. Cells essentially digest themselves, breaking down proteins and releasing enzymes. It's not pretty, but it's nature's most ancient recycling program. Here's where science meets mystery. Millions of people who've come close to death report eerily similar experiences. A bright light, a feeling of floating above the body, a deep sense of peace, encounters with deceased loved ones. Neurologists suggest several explanations. The surge of brain activity might create hallucinations. A flood of endorphins and possibly DMT, a powerful psychedelic, could induce visions. The brain's visual cortex misfires, creating the tunnel of light. But here's the unsettling part. In some cases, people describe events that happened after they were clinically dead, and later, those details check out. One famous study, the AWARE project, monitored cardiac arrest patients in hospitals. A small number described seeing things in the room, things later verified by medical staff. Science can't fully explain this, yet. Doctors break death into 3 stages. Clinical death: heart stops, breathing stops, consciousness gone. Biological death, cells and organs shut down permanently. Molecular death, even DNA and proteins break apart. The first stage can be reversed. CPR, defibrillation, and cooling the body can restart the heart, sometimes up to 20 minutes later. The second stage, no return. This is why organ transplant teams move incredibly fast. Organs start deteriorating within hours. Kidneys, liver, heart, all have strict time windows before they're unusable. For all we know, death still holds secrets. The consciousness question: is awareness just brain chemistry or something more? Quantum theories. Some physicists suggest consciousness might be a quantum process that doesn't end with the brain's death. Controversial, but intriguing. The Lazarus effect. In rare cases, patients have spontaneously regained circulation minutes after being declared dead. Nobody knows exactly why. Even with all our technology, we've never been able to measure the exact moment consciousness ends. In the end, death isn't an instant, it's a process. A final journey through fading senses, surging memories, and molecular breakdown. And science suggests it might not be terrifying at all. For some, those last moments could be the most vivid, peaceful, and meaningful of their lives. So maybe the question isn't just what happens when we die, but how we choose to live before we get there. If you found this fascinating, hit like, subscribe, and stick around, because in our next episode, we explore something even more shocking. What if you could live forever?